Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns. A viewer asked me to do an inside-out turning. But I'm involved in Christmas ornaments now, 'tis the season. So why not make an inside-out Christmas ornament? I'm going to violate a rule here, the rule of not saying what it is. I'm going to try and make a bell. The wood I'll use is apricot. Why apricot? Because I have it. This is a piece that I harvested some time ago. May not be completely dry, but I'm hoping that it will do. I'll cut it into 1-inch squares. I'll probably have to cut it in half in the end to get enough. But let's make a Christmas bell inside out of this apricot.
For an inside-out turning, strips are temporarily glued together, then a shape is turned that will become the inner shape. Then the strips are split apart, rotated 180 degrees, and glued together again. Finally, the outer shape is turned and finished. For this project, I cut the apricot into 1 1/8-inch square strips about 8 inches long. I oriented each strip in the block for best grain pattern, then numbered each strip and marked the inner corner with an arrow. I needed a clue as to which way was in or out. Next, I rotated each strip 180 degrees. Then I put just a little bead of glue along the short outer end edges, clamped up the block, and let the glue cure overnight. The block has only a small trace of glue holding it together. Therefore, there's a risk of the glue failing and the block flying apart. I slipped a band clamp onto the stock. For safety's sake, I made sure the excess metal strip trailed behind the rotation so that the strip could not accidentally dig into me. Since the wood block is square, I figured the band clamp would dig into the edges and probably not grip as tightly as I'd like. On Baltic birch plywood, I cut a circle the size of the corners of my blank. Then I cut along marks for the sides of my blank to form little wood arcs. I slipped these arc pieces under the band clamp and tightened the clamp. With so much metal rotating at high speed, I did not want my hands to hit the metal. As an extra measure of protection, I wrapped the band clamp with strapping tape, the kind that has nylon fibers embedded in it. I did not want to use duct tape because duct tape can tear easily, and I cannot tear the fiber tape. With all that done, it was time to first cut a dovetail tenon, then reverse the block and mount it into the squirrel chuck. I remounted the band clamp with the wood strips and the fiber tape on the other end, making sure the excess band from the clamp trails behind the rotation. The squirrel chuck would hold its end tightly enough. I always made sure the block rotated freely. With all the extra hardware, it's worth checking clearance multiple times. For me in this project, the challenge was to visualize the inside-out part of the turning. I made a pattern and traced it onto the wood, but in retrospect, I did this wrong. Trying to think inside out, I traced from the corner of the block, and it was way off. It would have been better to align the pattern to the middle glue joint of the block, but cut the pattern to trace the outside curve. I traced it a couple of times and wound up winging it. Better luck next time with the inner pattern. For most of this project, I used my large bowl gouge. I sharpened it as recommended by Stuart Batty. He recommends a 40-degree angle for the bevel and 40-degree angle for the top of the wings. He calls it a 40-40 grind. For the final cuts on the side, I used my skew. With the inside portion done, it's time to sand. I started at 120 grit and went to 600 grit, then finished the inside with shellac friction polish. I did not use my mineral oil and beeswax mixture for fear that it might interfere with gluing the block back together again. I had to be very careful hand sanding this piece. Between the sharp corners and the band clamp, I only drew blood once. Small cut, but it still hurts. I tried to always keep my hands where if I touched the wood would knock me out of the way instead of jamming into my hand. With the inside turning completed, it was time to turn it inside out. I split the strips. I clamped the blank to a table saw sled, then carefully sawed a shallow curve along the glue line. Then with just a little prying, the strips came apart. I turned them 180 degrees and glued them together again with white glue. If any of the white glue did squeeze out, the glue would not be obvious, as it would be with yellow glue. After letting the glue cure overnight, it was time to turn the outside. No need for a band clamp now, as the strips were well glued. Again, I first cut a dovetail tenon for the headstock end, then flipped the blank end for end. Again, I traced my pattern. Again, it was not worth much more than a general guide. I stopped the lathe often to check the progress. The best guide was to look through the opening I could see the inner edge through the opening, and forgetting my pattern, I tried for a fairly consistent thickness on the strips of wood that emerged. When sanding, I didn't have the risk of hitting the band clamp anymore. Gone also were the sharp corners, but in their place were the knife edges of the slats forming the bell. They round over to a pretty sharp edge. I made sure to keep my hands clear so these sharp-edged knives would not come at me. After sanding through 220 grit, it was time to add a couple of burned highlights. I used a pointed scraper to make a shallow groove at the bottom of the bell, then wire to burn it in. At the top, I used a skew to make a groove and a piece of formica to burn it in. Then back to final sanding. Next, turn off the top spigot and sand its area. Before drilling the top of the bell for the clapper and the hanger, I used a skew chisel to make a small indent to guide the drill bit. Sanded the knife edges of the sides of the bell just a little bit to take the sharp edge off. With the top and the side sanded, it was time for the shellac again. Nearly done, I reduced the bottom spigot, but did not dare cut it off with the lathe running. I got it very small, then finished the job with a handsaw. A donut-shaped gem chuck from a previous project was almost the right size to hold the bell. With a paper towel for padding, I sanded and finished the bottom. It was too loose to use a tool, but enough for sanding. Then to secure the clapper and the hanger with a little CA glue, and voila, one Christmas bell. The clapper is also a small bell. I'll have to work on my pattern to get both the inside and outside right, but this one turned out great. Please join in our Christmas ornament wood turning challenge. If you're a wood turner, video you making an ornament, upload the video, and I'll add it to our challenge playlist. If you're a viewer, please enjoy. If there's another project you'd like to see, please let me know. Meanwhile, please like this video and stay tuned for more.